Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, where we have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. So cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Greg, thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks.
What are we drinking today?
Something really hard. It's Synergy Raw Kombucha.
Ooh.
I was drinking iced tea last week, so
Trilogy.
does it have now? So kombucha is non-alcoholic,
No.
but you can, I believe, put alcohol in there. So
Yes.
If you really wanted to. Got to get your probiotics in, though.
right. So, kombucha is tasty. I do like it.
Yeah, it is.
It's great. It's great. Welcome, everyone, to the show. This week, we've got a very special guest, Greg McAfee from McAfee Heating and Air in Dayton, Ohio. Greg started his company 31 years ago with a whopping $274 in his pocket. Launched it out of his house, eventually built a garage, and started using that as his office and supply house, where there was no plumbing, and his first employee out of there had to use the bathroom in the house in order to run the business. But he did things the right way. And one of the things that he's really well known for is being a master of creating great company culture. And he's doing that now, not only within his own company, where he is now an eight-figure or approaching eight-figure business, but also in helping others through his coaching and consulting, and helping businesses across North America grow their service business. He's been named one of the best places to work in his town of Dayton, Ohio. And he is also a regular contributor to HVAC, Our Business Magazine, and DuckTales Magazine. So welcome so much, Greg. Thank you for making the time being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No worries. So I managed to steal some of your story there away from you, but would love to hear a little bit about your journey, 31 years in the business, getting from working out of your house to where you're at now in a 30,000 square foot facility.
Sure. So, I had $274 and I bought a used Ranger and put a used service cap on it and had it lettered, which I remember driving home from the place that lettered it. And I pulled over twice underneath gas station lights and looked at it. I was just, really happy to have my name on a truck.
Yeah.
And I put my shingle out. I was planning on waiting a few years to start my own business, but we got married, bought a home, and started a business in that order. I got laid off from the company I was working at, heating and air company I was working at, and they went under about 3 months later. Originally, I worked at 19 years old. I got a job at Firestone, where my dad and grandfather both ended up retiring from. So my dad said at 19, college wasn't in my sights. And my dad said, if you want in, I can get you in. So I moved from Mansfield, Ohio to Dayton and started working at Firestone, worked a lot of overtime, did a lot of cool things there, learned a lot. But I realized after a couple of years, I just didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So I went into the Marine Corps, served in the Marine Corps for a couple of years, actually took a refrigeration course in the Marine Corps, and I liked it. So when I got out and I was in the reserves, Firestone held my job. So I started taking heating and air school at night. And that's what kind of got me into the heating and air trade. And then as soon as I graduated, I took a 50% pay cut from Firestone because it was URW, United Rubber Workers. So it paid really well for a 19-year-old, especially 21-year-old. But I took a 50% pay cut and got into heating and air. And that's what when I get the chance to talk to students today at different schools, I always teach that or talk about that is sometimes you got to start off at the bottom and work your way up, because we know how everybody wants to start off at the top today. And sometimes it's worth waiting for. So I got into heating and air. I worked for a couple companies. Like I said, I got laid off, and that series happened, got married, bought a house, and I said, I'm going to start now. So bought that truck, got out there. I wore out a lot of shoes. I went door to door everywhere. I'd go door to door residential. I'd go door to door shopping centers. Just, do you need anything done? A filter changed or a belt changed or whatever. And, and I made a ton of phone calls. Back then we had everybody had a landline in 1990. So 1991. So we had a crisscross directory that had everybody's name and address in it. And I could just go down per street and call everybody on that street. That was kind of neat because you really can't do that today. Nope. But I'd make 100 calls and I might get one call. So, I'd have to make 200 to 300 calls a day to get a couple calls on the board for the week. And our board was actually our cupboard. It was kind of funny today because we call it it was actually a cub board. But our cabinets, I put sticky notes Monday through Saturday and I had our schedule on it. And my wife, everybody was like, did your wife put up with all those sticky notes on the cabinet? And I was like, absolutely. That meant I had work. And so that was our schedule. And if someone called in today and I somehow got a call today, I would schedule it out a few days just to act like I was busier than I was, even though I didn't have anything to do. And something else, my wife she worked a job and supported us for a year and a half. Because I did not draw a paycheck for a year and a half. Everything went back in, and it was very little. I think the first year we did $65,000 total revenue. So it was just a process of getting this thing going. But I remember she'd get off work at 4 and get home around 4:30. And if I was in the house when she got home, I would leave about a quarter after 4. So I wasn't home when she got home because I wanted her to think I was out, hustling. Which I had been most of the day, but it was just one of those things where I didn't want to be home. And so then I'd drive around a little bit and then I'd pull back in, maybe 15, 20 minutes after she got home. I think eventually she figured it out, but that's okay.
I was going to say, does she know about this now?
Yeah, she knows it now.
You had to really be careful on those days where it snowed, right?
Yeah.
Leave the tire tracks in the driveway.
Yeah. So, but it was just a very slow process. And at the time, I would see, the first couple, 2 or 3 years, we only hired like one person a year for the first 15 years. And at the time I thought I would see other companies starting and they'd buy brand new trucks and all this stuff. And I'd always wonder, what am I doing wrong? This thing's just not taking off as fast as I thought. But fast forward today, that slow growth has really paid off. And all those companies that started with new trucks, they're no longer around. And that's what when I coach people, I try to coach building strong and slow, rather than fast and, basically too fast to where you're not building a really good customer base. And I also teach, if you're just chasing money, you're going to be chasing it forever. If you're going to take care of people and do the job right, you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to be around a long time. And that's what I teach. And that's what I preach at McAfee. It's not about the quick buck. Anybody can go out and make a quick buck. But not too many people can do it for 31 years.
Totally.
And continuous business for 31 years, because we all know the statistics of how fast businesses, what a percentage businesses go under after the first 5. I think it's something like 65% go under after 5 years. So to do it for 31 years, the slow growth has definitely paid off. We've stayed residential is our focus. So we're 95% residential. And I'll stop here, but I think a lot of times I teach we're just as successful for what we don't do as we are what we do, because we don't do new construction. We don't even work on oil heat, and we have oil heat available. We don't work on boilers, and I just don't go after the commercial work. And we know what we do best, and that's what we focus on. So that's a quick snapshot of, kind of what we've done.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And I know you mentioned this 65%, go under after 5 years, and there's probably nuances to each particular niche. And I've always heard the number, and I know, Evan, you mentioned a bunch of numbers prior to us. getting on air, but 80% of businesses go out of business after 5 years due to improperly managed cash flow, because they haven't set, as Tersh said, set a strong foundation. You get a good, strong foundation in your business, you'll have the success. But one of those strong foundations is a good financial acumen. What's your debt level? Those guys that are going out and buying new trucks. Okay, well, now you've got a truck payment, right? Well, do you need a flashy new truck right off the hop? No, you don't need that. So start with what you can. I mean, some people start with private equity, et cetera, and some capital and some investors, and a little bit different of a scenario. But if you want to start it yourself, I mean, don't go out and go all flash and dash right off the bat.
Exactly.
And you even look at the way that Tersh is running his business. One of the guests that we've got chiming in the comments here, Tersh Blissett. I mean, he runs a business that's completely mobile. He has no physical location for people to come to as a way to run it more efficiently. And now he can reinvest more into his technicians and more into his people. So Tersh wants to know if you can update his computer security software after today's call.
Sure. We'll be right there.
Awesome. Love it. No, I took a couple of notes there. One of the things that I wrote down was moving to scale. That ability to build a strong foundation, grow from the ground up. I am curious though, do you feel like the pace that you went on is appropriate for most business owners, or do you feel like there's a way to do it where you can accelerate that learning curve, that steep a little bit quicker, and still have just as strong of a foundation?
Absolutely. And there's companies that in certain areas demographically that can go from 0 to 4 million twice as fast as I did.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know. I'm like a lot of contractors I coach. I didn't know a lot about business. I never took a business course. The first book I read was Business by the Book by Larry Burkett, which was a biblically based business operation of how to run a business. And we've stuck to those principles, like pay your people on time, pay your vendors on time, do what you say you're going to do, all those types of things that work today. But no, my process was extremely slow, and it doesn't have, I don't teach it has to be slow, but I also teach it doesn't have to be fast either. Right. You got to go at your own pace of what you're able to do in your area. If I would have hired a salesman earlier, we would have probably been way ahead today. But I waited way too long to take that hat off because I thought I was the best salesman in the world. Little did I find out the first year after hiring a really good salesman, he killed me.
Nice.
And that was great. But that was an eye opener because I thought I should have done this, 3 to 5 years ago. Where would I be today? But I mean, it's all paid off and it's all worked out well. But yeah, there are times where you need to pull the trigger a lot faster than I did. I just didn't know. I started taking professional management classes at a group called Aileron. Clay Mattiel was the sole owner of Imes Pet Food. He lives right here in Dayton, Ohio, and he sold it to Procter & Gamble for somewhere around $2.4 billion. And he started Aileron, which is the aileron's part of the plane that helps it take off. And it's about a $30 million facility sitting on about 100 acres here in Dayton. And he brings entrepreneurs from all over the United States in, and they teach professional management and how to run a business. They have president's courses and all that kind of stuff. So I've been through all that. And I actually used to teach their branding and marketing class, just kind of the basics of it. And because in Dayton, Ohio, we're kind of top dog on TV, radio, now social media and all that stuff. So you can speed up the process for sure. But you've got to know when to hit the gas and when to slow down a little bit too, because more businesses go out of business from growing too fast than they do lack of capital.
Nothing feels like success, right? And I know you mentioned that in your podcast. You talked a lot about Blockbuster and Sears and all these big, massive businesses that thought their shit don't stink and nothing could go wrong. And little did they know, by not paying attention to what was coming and failing to innovate and looking at what's next for the market. And I mean, let's face it, just being fanatically in love with your customer and knowing what it is that they truly want and how to serve them better.
Right.
You know, they're out of business now. So
Exactly.
the other thing that I wrote down was that you're not scared of the work. And in the beginning, you were willing to hustle and put in and grind and do whatever it takes to get customers. And in the beginning, you had more time than money. So it was heavy work, right? Making the phone calls, doing the dials, hitting the ground, going door knocking, right? So there's a lot of things that guys can do physically in order to go out and take advantage of the market and use social media and things like that are free, that cost more time than money. But you've talked a lot about it in the podcast, like your second episode reference marketing and being able to grow your business. You know, and one of the chapters in your book as well is being well known. So what does that mean to you now? And how would a business go about being well known within that market?
First of all, start really understand what branding and marketing and advertising is, and really start. In today's world, so much different than when I started, but we've adapted and we've evolved, or, you know, we wouldn't be number one in our territory out of approximately 500 heating and air companies. But it's getting your name out there, and it's also about getting involved in your community, not just sitting at a desk and, you know, trying to with gas valves all over it and parts and trying to grow a heating and air conditioning company. It's about really getting out into the community. And I always challenge people all the time, pick something you're passionate about. You know, for us, it's children and indoor air quality. And we've worked with the American Lung Association. We've worked with our local children's hospital. We worked with the big one right now for us is the Salvation Army, the Ray Kroc Center. They help a lot of children. So we feed a lot of kids right here in the Dayton area. I like local stuff. I like my money to go here and help local communities. We help a lot of kids with allergies and asthma and, you know, COPD and all that kind of stuff. So the indoor air quality, the breathing, and children. And that's what we focus on. But I tell people all the time, focus on what you're passionate about, and then go out and make it happen in your community. It's amazing how much we don't do it for the work, but we get as much work from that as we do, you know, being on TV or Spotify or anything else. I mean, it's just that's just how it works. So you got to be known. You got to make yourself known. You're not going to be known if you don't go out and make it happen.
100%. So what is the difference then between marketing, advertising, and branding? You mentioned that you need to know what it is. In your definition, how would you define that separation?
Well, the brand is just who you are. That's the first thing you've got to start building. And it's not just a logo. Your logo is very important. And I challenge guys all the time to get opinions of your logo, get opinions of your company name before you start. There's been a lot of companies start off with these names that don't even make sense. And they're hard to I know McAfee can be called a lot of different things, but there's a lot of names out there that just don't jive with heating and air, or they're just almost like silly. Right. So you want a solid name, and you should pay people, you should pay professionals who do this. And it doesn't cost a whole lot to get a professional opinion on how's this name going to fit in my city. And then how can I brand it? And branding is just being known. That's all it is. You're just being known. And you do that by consistency is very important. You don't, you know, a lot of guys have a blue truck, a white truck, and a red truck, and, you know, red, white, and blue is all cool and everything. But if you're in the neighbor's neighborhood and your truck pulls in, everybody in the neighborhood needs to know it's you. They don't need to guess, right? And we've been doing this 31 years, and we're just now wrapping trucks. I've had just really clean, white looking, you know, I like the Apple approach. If you get on Apple's website, it's so clean, it's white. And so we've kind of adopted that for many years. So we're just starting to wrap our trucks right now, and they're really starting to pop. I mean, people are noticing them more than ever. So that's part of our brand. I mean, that's who we are. And it's still got we cleaned up our logo as well. It's kind of funny. We've got the blades around McAfee. If you get on our website at mcair.com, you can kind of see the blades. Well, when we hired a new company to take a look at everything, they noticed that our blades weren't even aligned properly. They blew them up and they weren't even aligned properly. We've had this same logo for 15 years.
Wow.
So they put our logo, our existing logo with a new logo. They just cleaned it up good. And they actually did something really cool. They made it really small, and they said, this is what your logo would look like, 250 feet driving down the road. The old one you couldn't read, the new one you could read. Who would have thought of that, right? I mean, what's your logo look like so many car lengths ahead of you when you're trying to, brand your truck? So branding is just who you are, and it's not just a look. It also represents what you believe in. If you're a high caliber premier dealer, then you're branding yourself to be that. If you're just a chuck in a truck and your truck's dirty with a bunch of crap on your dashboard, you're branding yourself to be that. People are expecting you to have the lowest price. People don't expect us to have the lowest price. Right. Anytime somebody says, I didn't think it was that high, our comment is, but you probably figured it would be, right? And they go, yeah. So they're really expecting us to be high. Once they get past that little bit of sticker shock, they say, let's do it. Most of the time, we've got a very high closing ratio. But we're known for that, and it's on purpose. So that's the brand. The marketing is just getting out there with the logo, with the business cards, with an ID tag on the service techs, and with the trucks are also part of marketing, and we market who we are. So marketing can be a lot of different things. Just getting the name out there. Marketing can be in your community, doing different things in your community, and then the advertising is just going to be the media buys, the media. Where are you at, and how are you advertising? What do your spots look like? For the past probably 6 years, we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on our spots. So we've had them professionally produced. I used to be in all my spots. I used to stand in front of a green board. We do all kinds of stuff. It worked well, back then. But I also had to think succession-wise, if Greg gets thrown under the bus, this whole company's about me. And I don't want it about me as much. So, but I do my own voiceover because my voice is so well known here in Dayton. I can be in a restaurant and 2 or 3 people will actually turn around and come back to my booth because they heard me. Right. So they know my voice. So I'm still the voiceover, but I'm not in any of the spots anymore. And they're very professional. I call them Super Bowl material because we advertise on the Super Bowl at times and locally. And they fit right in with some of those $2 million spots. So they look good and they're professional and they represent us well. So I hope that helps.
No, definitely does. A lot to unpack. I'm sure, Evan, you've got a few notes, and really it starts with the brand. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and I think Dan Anatelli was the one from KidCharge who even sparked in my mind is that it's easier to build a brand than it is to build a business. And because you're building this image of, if it's just you and you're starting out, it's literally you're building the image of you. But it also has to have consistency in everything that you do over and over and over and over again. Like you mentioned, your voice is known within the market. Well, our intro was done by a friend of ours who was a radio DJ. And he actually was called a business. And his voice was still on the recording of the business because he did the voiceover. But he will still to this day, and he's been out at radio for 10 years now, he will still get people saying, "Oh yeah, you're Tim Harrison. You DJ'd up in Regina, Saskatchewan," and it's actually named Regina, and that's how you pronounce it, just Regina, not Regina, just an FYI. But that's the thing is you have that consistency and that well-known repetition and frequency, and that's what it takes to have that branding part of the business.
Yeah, when we came out with the 8 to 8 same great rate,
that's catchy.
which I'll talk about. But I mean, when we came out with that, I thought it was a good idea to let's have this hit. Let's have these media spots hit at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And so like 15 seconds or 30 seconds before 8 a.m., we come on with an 8 to 8, same great rate. Thank you for using McAfee, or it could be a full-blown commercial. But then I had people telling me, I can tell if I'm on time because your radio spot comes on and I know it's 8 o'clock. So that's powerful. That's a brand. Mm-hmm. That's a continuous brand. Nobody touched us. When I was actually at a business class at Aileron, I told you about, and they said I was in probably with 50 different business owners outside of HVAC. I was the only HVAC guy, and they said, "What can you do differently that that no one in your industry is doing?" And when it came to me, I turned it around and I said, "Well, what would you guys like from your heating and air company?" And they all said after-hour service. They said, "We're tired of this 8 to 5. We call it 5:01. We get a voicemail. We can't call any earlier than 8 because we get a voicemail, and we're tired of waiting around all day for a technician to show up like the cable company." So I came back. We brainstormed a little bit. We started putting things together, and we come out with an 8 to 8, same great rate. And I hit it hard. I hit it hard. And nobody touched us for 5 years. And we were taking more market share. For us, it was huge to go from like 3.5 million to 5.2 million in 1 year. And we skipped a whole 4 million, and over just an 8 to 8, same great rate. It became part of our brand. It became part of our marketing strategy. And the most popular time changed from 8 a.m. to 5 to 8 p.m. And it was huge. And we still do it today. I don't market it as much anymore because it's just, when people started trying to copy me, we just changed gears and went into something else.
Yeah.
Well, you innovate, right? And like that's when somebody starts, obviously imitation is the finest form of flattery. If somebody wants to imitate you, obviously you're doing something right. But then you also have to stay above the game and stay above them, and you have to innovate, for that. And it's actually kind of interesting is I know you talk a little bit about, one of the things in your book is the innovation and how you stay above the curve and all those sorts of things. So I guess it's a little bit premature, but I wanted to jump into, what do you see, as the future of HVAC? But I guess how can you continually innovate on different things, such as what you just explained?
Well, first of all, every business owner has to make time to think, and that's something we don't do. Most don't do. Very few. The most successful companies in the United States, if you ask them, they'll probably tell you they spend time in a room thinking a lot. And I often tell my team, if you walk by my office door and I'm sitting here staring out my window, don't ask me if I'm busy, because that's when I'm the busiest. I'm thinking. And I'm thinking, I've got to think of things that I could take a class or listen to a podcast, and I can take one thing from that and say, how can we do it? How can we do this? Not only that, but how can we do it better? Mm-hmm. And how can we make it work here in Dayton, Ohio? Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of good, cool things happening in California and Las Vegas and all those places, but Dayton, Ohio is Dayton, Ohio. Okay. I often say when I hold business boot camps here, I go, if you just want to go to Maui and party, that's great. But if you want to come here and grow your business, this is what we do in Dayton. So I'm trying to, you're not going to come to Dayton, Ohio because it's a party, right? So I'm constantly thinking, and then I hang around with thinkers. So you got to surround yourself with successful people if you want to be successful. I know that's you've heard that before. Most people have heard that, but you really got to implement that. And you've got to hang around with people who are successful, and they don't have to be in heating and air. A lot of my ideas come from outside of our trade. I've had a board of advisors for probably 15, 20 years, and I've only had one member who's in HVAC. And because I don't really want HVAC, I want thinkers, and I want people. In other words, my first board, I was really weak in operations. I was really weak in hiring and firing. and HR, and I was just weak overall in business. So I had the president of Pella Windows on my board. I had a guy who was a guru of operations who took businesses from 2 to 3 million to 300 million. And I had a lady who was over HR at Iams Pet Food and did all the key hiring for Clay Mathieu. So here I got this little, we were probably doing 3 million a year. And I've got this board of advisors that's just like rocks, right? And they come in 4 times a year. We meet for 4 hours and go over all this stuff. But that's how I come up with the best ideas. That's how I become more innovative. It's not like I'm smarter than anyone. There's a lot of guys out there a lot smarter than me. But you can't just talk the talk. And I challenge business owners all the time. It's easy to sit around and dream, but it's harder to implement those dreams. And you've got to be willing to take a risk, because a lot of the things I implement don't work. And they suck. And they cost me a lot of money. But you've got to know when to pull the plug on those and change gears fast. And you can't get stuck on failure, because we all know failure is what keeps things going. You know, if you didn't fail, you wouldn't know any different. And I don't know if you'd be as far ahead. It's the failure. It's the things that didn't work that you learn from. And as an entrepreneur, you just keep trying. But you also get good counsel before you just leap out and try something.
100%. And well, and like, I love the time to think. Like, I know I've been a big proponent of it, and you see some of my videos. I mean, I'm at the dog park a lot. I have a dog, and I will just go out there and I won't take any, like, I'll put my phone in my pocket, put it on silent, walk around and just think about things and think through things. Sometimes I'll listen to podcasts and what have you if I don't feel I need the time to think, but it's a super good thing because you can gain clarity on what it is. You know, I know Evan and I, we like after our Whiskey Wednesdays, after this show is when we do our thinking time, mainly because we're half snapped and, you know, our ideas are the best. But but you come back to, you know, to failures. And you mentioned, you know, you were weak in things, right? You implemented things and they didn't work. And, you know, to have success, you have to have failures. So I want to, you know, ask the question from Tersh. You know, Tersh asked this: so what is the biggest mistake you ever made? There's another part to this question, but I almost want the second part into like 2 phases. One, if you had $40K cash right now lying around, if you were 1 year into business, how would you invest that?
Sure. Well, I mean, I bought a chimney cleaning company thinking I could tie it into heating and air. What a mess, literally. And then I bought a carpet cleaning company. I thought I could. We've been doing air duct cleaning since 1993. We are basically leader in air duct cleaning. We do thousands of homes a year. So I thought I could tie carpet cleaning in that, and I just decided to leave it to Stanley Steamer. And let them go at it. So, but I did end up selling that and kind of recovered some of my loss. And then I bought a home remodeling company. I didn't really tie it into McAfee, but it was part of what we did. We tried to, you know, little did I know that they had all subcontractors, and it's just a totally different world. And I lost more money. A good friend of mine who has a very large business. It was his wife. She said, "Greg, how long are you going to keep this thing and let it drain you?" That was an eye opener. And that's probably been 12, 15 years ago. And so I just cut the cord and stopped it right away, stopped the bleeding. So those were kind of some stupid things I did. Not hiring a salesperson was a mistake. Thinking that I was like a good salesperson. And yeah, I could sell. My name was on my shirt. I could sell, but not as good as people who dedicate themselves to sales. I was dedicating myself to running a business and putting out fires at the time, and they're hiring and firing and everything else I did and trying to sell. That was stupid. A lot of guys do that.
Well, a jack of all trades and a master of none.
The $40,000. I would
but caveat that 1 year into business, knowing what you know now.
1 year into business, I would take the $40,000, and first of all, I would be on some of these sites on social media, and I would ask who is the best marketer in heating and air. If I was in heating and air, and I would find out who the best company is that helps companies grow, and I would invest in them to coach me at first. 40,000 will get you a lot of coaching. I'm not sure I'd use it all for that, but I'd probably use 20,000 of that to help coach me, make sure my logos are cool, make sure my name's right, make sure my truck looks good, make sure all that kind of stuff. And then I'd probably hire someone like me who started from scratch and got to 10 million. And then I would try to learn, how am I going to do that best? I don't think it'd be buying anything other than knowledge and assurance that I'm doing it right.
An investment into yourself is always a winner.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love
and if you can invest in copper too, that would be good.
Just go take it out of the old houses. That's all.
Really.
Tersh followed up with, who is the best marketing company?
Well, duh. I mean, obviously the best marketing company is us. I mean, it's On Purpose Media. Come on, let's be real. It's our show. Silly question, Tersh.
Appreciate the layup, bud.
Easy. Slam dunk the shit out of that one.
Yeah. That was a freebie, Tersh.
Right?
Right.
All right. Follow up, Evan, or random question?
Well, the other funny one too was Tersh here saying he needs to buy a remodeling company so that he can fix all the sheetrock damaged ceilings. Guys falling through the attics. And
exactly.
Right?
That happened yesterday.
Oh gosh.
I've seen it like I've been. I mean, in my own attic in my house a few times back in my rental, and like, man, if you're not careful where you put your hands and knees if you're crawling on there, or your feet, you stand up and you're not on the beams, you're fucked.
Pretty tough,
right? And it's just, well, you're crawling around into nothing, right? So, cool. Random question. Well, we have an A and a B, but A was kind of ish. I mean, same thing on Tersh's, but so we'll go with B. In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for? So in 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
I don't know. Harvey Firestone had 42,000 people by the time he was 40 years old, and he started Firestone Tire and Rubber Company out of a garage and didn't go to college. Unfortunately, his children didn't learn how to appreciate the business as much, and sold it to Bridgestone and made billions. But where is it at today? They had a major problem with Ford and lost their reputation, and now they're trying to rebuild it. But what is he known for? Think about what he's known for. I mean, he competed with Goodyear, big competition for Goodyear. So 40 years from now, what are you known for? I mean, all you have is, what's the most important thing you have is your reputation. Mm-hmm. I mean, really nothing else matters. You can sell your business and make millions, but if you had a terrible reputation and someone else has got to come in and rebuild it and make it work, I don't know what that's worth. I mean, maybe it's worth something to someone, but I'd rather not have the millions and sell with a great reputation, knowing that I left it in good hands, and that, not good hands, but left it in good shape, taking care of people, that our team is taken care of, our customers are taken care of, and we're known for doing things right. So I don't think you can beat the reputation thing.
Love that. One of my old bosses told me when I first started in the elevator industry, was a passenger elevator industry. In case you're in a place where there's lots of grain elevators, people tend to think that mainly Saskatchewan, that must be a Canadian thing. But I digress. I haven't said that word in a while, Evan. I digress. So one of the old bosses, when I first started, he's like, Thad, there's two things you need to know in this industry, is that there's only two things in life that matter: your last name and your reputation. So you better protect both. And they go hand in hand, with that, because I would much rather be, and actually even to this day, I mean, 2 years ago, I was reffing a hockey game in an arena, and I'd been out of this industry for 6 years, and the lady came up to me. She's like, "Oh, Thad, I remember you." I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I drew blanks, right? She's like, "I was in the passenger elevator industry. I was at this and this company, and can you just come back, because they sucked, right? Everybody else sucks since you left, right?" And so that's like, you're only as great as your last day at the job too. So if you're not an owner and you're watching this, keep in mind your last day at your job is also how people are going to see you, right? You want a good reference from your previous employer? Well, make sure that your last day is great, because your reputation precedes you on that. And so I apologize for also my enunciations. I know how nostalgic can be known for. So in 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for? By the way, I love the answer known for. That was great segue in that. But in 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
Okay. Since I'm just a furnace guy, tell me what you mean by that.
So what will they want? Like, what is something from today's time that in 40 years won't exist and people will want again?
Okay. More, I'm going to have to say they're going to want the in and out approach. I mean, the little in and out restaurants are multi-billion-dollar restaurants because they get you in, they get you out. I don't care if it's 1990 or 2021. Nobody wants you in their house long. They want you to get in and get out, and that's why years ago I came up with a guarantee: installed in 1 day or it's free, because we're going to get it done in 1 day. And today we have such good systems in place with our own sheet metal shop and all that stuff. I mean, an average installations complete is 6 to 8 hours, and that's doing it right. So I don't think that's going to change, and I think it's still going to be required to even get faster. Maybe everything else is getting faster, right? I mean, nobody's going backward on speed of a computer or a phone. Everything gets faster, and I think the faster we can get, the response time's got to be fast, which we push hard, because if we don't respond, somebody else will fast. The day of having a 2-day install, that's history. The day of waiting weeks for an install, that's something else right now that's going on. Everybody knows there's a shortage of equipment, right? Did anybody think about maybe buying some up earlier, even on consignment? I mean, my warehouse is stacked full, and it's a pretty good sized warehouse. I said on a podcast the other day, the only thing I was upset about is I didn't get on the refrigerant end, and I did with R22. We literally bought 30 skids of R22 years ago. We've got 2 skids left right now when it was $59 a jug. So I was upset about this increase, and I talked to all my suppliers, and evidently they were surprised by it too. So I did get in on it. I just didn't get in it on time. But as far as equipment goes, we're selling jobs right now because other companies don't have equipment and they have to wait 2 weeks to get it. We've got a boatload full right here in our warehouse, and that's why we're busy every day here in Dayton, Ohio. So I think to answer your question, the quick response, the speed time of a job, troubleshooting fast. If you don't train your guys right, they're going to be in there forever trying to troubleshoot. Having a camera on their head or whatever it takes to help them speed up with someone watching it, that's going to be more and more common to do. And to have one guy sitting in a room with 10 screens watching four squares per screen, watching all the technicians, it's going to be common.
There's an innovation tip for you. If no one was paying attention to that, they damn well should be. Well, one of the things that you had mentioned and touched on a little bit is the learning aspect and surrounding yourself with the best people, so you can have that advisory board and constantly learning and innovating and growing. You mentioned on your podcast, LAP, your acronym that you use there: learn, act, produce, and prosper. Right. I really wanted to touch on the learn aspect of it, because that's the first step is an awareness. If you're not surrounding yourself with the right people, if you're not paying attention to the right things, which, by the way, if you need a great podcast to listen to, the Greg McAfee Show, make sure you tune in. Greg essentially walks you through his boot camps, the Business Boot Camp Revival, 2020 Revival, I think it is called now. but it's a phenomenal podcast. I highly recommend it. He's also got his book, Build and Grow Your HVAC Business. So if you need to start with a great business book, may as well start with an HVAC book and someone who's built an eight-figure business. So go grab his book, which is on his website, gregmcafee.com. So make sure you check it out. If you do need to get in touch with him as well, we've also got his Facebook group, which is a private Facebook group. So make sure you apply for that. And
it's a long number. Don't worry, we'll put it in the show notes for later.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And of course, his email, which is greg@mcair.com.
I think that if you change it, by the way, because I know I showed you before the show how to change that, it should still forward.
Yeah. Totally.
But if you change that, send me a DM send me a message on Facebook, and we'll make sure that we update our show notes accordingly if you do change that.
Okay.
So in regards to learning, those are some great resources, and absolutely everyone needs to tune into those. You had mentioned on your show, 58% of the failures in business come from a lack of leadership. And I believe that leadership is a learned skill. It's not something that you're born with. It's something you learn, and it's learned through osmosis, through being around it and being inspired by great leaders, and also through studies. So I'm curious, what are some things and resources that you've really pulled from in terms of leadership and becoming a better business owner and a better leader for your organization?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, if you have children, that's the best place to start. Teach your children how to lead. We're not giving, everybody wants to blame the millennials. Everybody wants to blame, now you've got the X, Y, Z generation. And we actually serve 5 generations. We serve them now because the youngest one's about 24 and they're actually starting to buy homes. And then you've got the baby boomers, and then you've still got the greatest generation ever, World War II. There's, 5% of those people still own homes. So we're serving 5 generations. So I say all that to say everybody who wants to blame millennials need to start at home with their own children and teach them responsibilities and teach them leadership, because they're not going to learn to lead if they don't have their own chores to do and they don't have responsibility in the home. Yep. I mean, it sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many don't. I've got a 17-year-old, and a lot of her friends don't work. They're handed a credit card and they have a new car. Can I afford to do that? Absolutely. Did I do that? No. My daughter bought her own car. She pays for her own gas, and she has a lot of responsibilities. So not that I'm a perfect dad by any means, but if we want to start changing America, we need to start at home. Now, after that, I'd like to say that you can't get enough learning. You really can't get enough learning. And I'm all about reading, whether it's reading or audiobook, podcasts. I mean, my goodness, we have, this is what we didn't have in 1990. We have a computer access anywhere we go. I mean, I'm sitting in a meeting today, waiting for the meeting to start. And I read like 4 pages where could you do that? You couldn't do that 20 years ago.
And to bring your book with you.
Exactly. So anyway, you've got to be self-taught. I don't care how much education you have, you got to be self-taught. And I'm also pretty humble about words I don't know, like you just seen. I don't know every word, and I had to buy a vocabulary on tape one time to learn more words, because if I didn't like school, I didn't learn much. Steve Jobs had a 2.6. I was less than Steve in the GPA. I didn't listen. I didn't like school, and I didn't learn much. So I had to be self-taught later. I took a lot of classes. I read a lot of books. I had to take that vocabulary thing online just to learn more words. Evidently, that one wasn't in there. But
by the way, I know that you said you're just an HVAC guy. You're not just an HVAC guy. You are a smart, well-rounded, educated, and like you don't know big words. Who gives a shit if you don't know what nostalgic means? Like you run a $10 million per year business. And I'm sure that your nets are great on that. And you've created this culture and everything goes in. You've got a coaching business. So, just because I don't know big words, I sometimes say double negatives in my sentences.
Yeah.
Like
it's all good. Yeah. I mean, I really joke about it. I'm okay.
Yes.
When I'm at the table holding classes with doctors and everything else, I have to be on indoor air quality that they actually don't know about. I mean, and I don't know a word. I mean, I have to just say I'm only a furnace guy, and everybody laughs. Gets a little humor going, and it covers for my ignorance.
Yep.
But
well, the easiest question you say is, I don't know what that means. It's tough to say that,
right?
But also it's extremely humbling. And if you say I don't know what that means, you're not going to pretend and you're not going to fake it. People respect that more when you say I don't know what that means versus pretending that you know something that you don't.
Right. And that's a great segue to it's okay if you don't know everything about business. I mean, how many heating and air companies, electrical, plumbers, everything else that are started by a good technician? So it's okay to say, I don't know that and learn it. It's one thing to say, I don't know it and never learn it. It's another thing to say, I don't know that, I don't understand it, but take some classes or hire a mentor who does and learn it. And that's kind of what's lacking a lot of times. I mean, a lot of times when people hire me for a coach, one of the questions I have is, do you have broad shoulders and are you willing to take criticism? Because if you're not, I can't work with you. Because I'm going to tell you the way it is. When you're not getting up till 9 a.m. and getting into the office till 9:30 or 9:45, I don't know if you're going to be good for me, because I don't think that's going to work well. So a lot of guys hire me, and after about 2 or 3 sessions, they fire me because they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to change. They thought they did. They hired me to change, but they don't want to change that hard. I don't want to have to do that to change. I'll just continue to do this. I can make enough money, which ties into complacency, right? There's a fine line between pride and complacency. It's easy to get prideful to where I'm number one. And then it's also, well, this is good enough. I can make a lot of money just doing this and not having to change. So just continuing to learn, take classes, hang around smarter people, and be humble enough to know what you don't know.
Love it. Also, I technically am a millennial. But I will say that I was 17 years old and I bought a $10,000 truck cash, my own money, by myself as a 17-year-old, not even an allowance. And so if you instill those values in, I know my mom is either watching live or will be watching later. Thank you for that, because when you teach your kids the right way to go about things, they can move mountains if it's been instilled from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, I love the Gary Vee snippet where he talks about how, so many employers today complain about the youth and that they're not willing to work, they're not willing to work hard, but you were the one that gave them a fucking participation ribbon. So who's to blame, right?
Yeah, I did a little podcast. I haven't interviewed anyone yet. This is my 41st podcast that just went out yesterday, and it's on being in the pit when things go wrong. So it's a pretty good one. If anybody's going through hard times, it's worth listening to. But I interviewed my son, who will be 27 rather, in September, and we did something on hiring and retaining millennials. And I let him. He's worked at McAfee all his life, but he decided to get into teaching, and now he's going to end up being a professor. And he's actually coming back to work here for a little while. It's a long story, but I let him talk because he's taught the Generation Z, and he's hung out with Generation Y or Generation X, one of the two. I get those mixed up. But anyway, I let him talk about that and give his perspective, and I thought it was pretty good.
Love it. No, and it's a simple mindset shift, right? And just making sure that you're paying attention to what values they have as an individual, and all right, now how can we deliver on those as an employer? It's people. At the end of the day, they're still people.
Well, and I think exactly. And I think if you're the owner and you're constantly learning, I think that trickles down to your team. I mean, I push my team to learn more. I push my team to listen to podcasts. I send out really good podcasts to technicians that they would get into, because they're not going to like the ones I listen to, but they're going to like some ones for technicians or installers or field people. and my sales team, they have their own podcast they listen to. I mean, podcasts are extremely educating.
Yep.
And sometimes I listen to them 2 or 3 times because I didn't catch it all the first time. So if I'm a learner, my team's going to be learning, because we don't get stagnant. We don't stop. We're constantly learning. You can't grow and not keep learning at the same time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And we got our guest last week, Sam Wakefield, talked about that, as well. Like, how do you instill this learning aspect into your team? Well, you first yourself have to do it. It's not, you don't ram it down their throats. If you want them to do it, well, guess what? You do it yourself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, they follow suit when they see the top down doing it.
100%.
Agreed.
Yeah, Tersh just gave a shout out. And Tersh has his own show as well. So good for you for not plugging yourself there, Tersh. But I will plug it. Service Business Mastery is a great podcast as well. So make sure you tune into him and Josh. HVAC School for the Technician side is a fantastic podcast as well. I love that one too. One last topic I want to dive into is what's next. You talk a lot about innovation and doing things differently. And if you really want to stand out in your marketplace, you have to do what others are not doing in order to do that. So what do you see that's coming down the road for the HVAC space that if guys really need to start paying attention to right now and start planning for, because it's coming?
Just staying up on the technical side of things. Not every company, provides the right tools. Anytime there's a new tool that comes out that's going to save one of my technician, 10 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever, you multiply that times so many jobs and so many technicians. We do a couple different things. I mean, we have a tool allowance, or there might just be something that I say, let's buy every one of these guys this, because it's going to save the company a lot of money and it's going to help our customer to get diagnosed quicker. So you got to step outside. Let's see. When you listen to so many podcasts, you forget where you heard something, but I heard something recently that said it's one thing to step outside the box, where we talk about you got to be an outside the box thinker. But when you're too close to the box, what happens when things get tough? You jump back in the box.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to be a true outside the box thinker, you've got to get away from that box.
Right.
So it's not as easy to jump back in. And that takes constantly thinking outside the box. So you're moving and you keep moving away from that box to where you can't even get close to it anymore, because that box represents old stuff. In other words, the book that says what got you here is not going to keep you here.
Mm-hmm.
What got us here, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good principles. We're going to continue to stick with those principles that we have always done, but the way we do business is changing every single day. Another thing, so you've got the tool thing, the technical thing, but the other side of things is, even though we live in a society that we think we can text everything, even though we have a ton of complications with communication texting. Nobody gets it right. I didn't mean that. Or they send something they shouldn't have sent. All that kind of stuff. So even though we think we don't need communication, we still need soft skills. And the guys out in the field and the people on our phones, we have to constantly keep new soft skills in front of them all the time. And we do a lot of role playing here. So we're constantly role playing. If a customer says this, how do you react? If a customer says this, how do you react? And sales, we blow it away with role playing, because if you can sell in my conference room against 4 or 5 of us, we role play like this is a single mom, this is a mom, this is a daughter and her mom together, this is a husband and wife, and etc. If you can sell in that conference room, then you can go outside here and you can close anyone, because we're going to throw roadblocks everywhere and try to get you to screw up. How much do you screw up here than out there in the home?
Yep.
So that stuff for the future, what's going to change is continuing to do things better than we ever have. That's what's going to make us better. There's all kinds of different ways of doing things. Like you just said, there's someone that runs a business without a building. Actually, that's brilliant. I mean, Henry Ford was so busy, he didn't even have an office. At one time, he was so busy and out in the shop making sure everything was going the way he wanted it to go. He didn't even have a desk. The guy was just 100 mile an hour. So, I mean, what if you're just that organized to where you could just have a space somewhere, you know, you rent for organization, or have someone else rent it to organize, and you don't have a building. I mean, that's like, and if you're not far away from the box, I don't know what is, right? Because everybody wants their own building. Everybody wants their nice office. Yep. If you'd see my office, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's big, it's cool, and I got a really nice view. And I got a full sound system with 3 big TVs in here. We've been blessed. We've been debt-free business-wise since 2016, and I've been debt-free personal since 2011. So it's just pretty cool. I can do what I want and not be in debt. But that's my choice. There's a lot of successful businesses, much more successful than me, that know how to manage debt better and make debt work for them and all that kind of stuff. I get all that, but there's something about being debt-free where I sleep very well at night. So those are just a couple things that, and I see where we're going in the future. You know, how estimates are given, how many people today are actually using a tablet? Are they still using paper? We still go up against people that are still using paper. And I give my sales team $100, $100 cash, anytime they can close a job and bring me back the paper estimates from some other company.
There you go, Tersh. There's one way that they can that innovated for their text and their sales guys. So was that? But I like that. You know, on the topic of that, I really want to ask this because you mentioned like the tools, but like, you know, iPads it's just easy. It makes sense, right? But what are some of the tools that you get for your guys, or is an innovative tool for the techs?
Well, first of all, we've done we're in Ohio, so we do a lot of gas heat. So we've had combustion analyzers for years, and we do a complete report even when we install and we've been private labeling, by the way, since 2003. So everything we put in is a McAfee. When I started private labeling and I had a customer who had another brand air conditioner we put in, she needed a new furnace, and she just read the business news that said McAfee was going to start private labeling. I already had the furnace quoted. She was on the schedule, and she called me and said, how much more is it going to cost for a McAfee? I knew it was going to work. So we took off. We don't sell anything but a McAfee. We have 2 manufacturers, and everything we install is a McAfee, from our thermostats to our humidifiers to our air cleaners, air purification. Everything's a McAfee. So with that, when we install a new McAfee, the installers are trained to do a complete combustion analysis on it and hand the customer, we took your furnace from the factory where it just gets fired up one time to make sure it lights. If it was supposed to be a 95% efficient and we start it up and it's only 93 and we can get it to 96 by making a few adjustments, well, we just increased that efficiency. And we also helped reduce emissions at the same time. And then we know that our furnace, it's just like a new car. They always say we got to prep your car for the area you live in. That's what we do for furnaces. So by the time, if you want to go green, which it's kind of an old term almost anymore, but if you want to go green, start doing combustion analysis on every furnace to where you can reduce emissions on 100 furnaces. You've really decreased your footprint, carbon footprint a little bit for that neighborhood, if that makes sense. So every other tool of how it now in today's world, it's how does it adapt to your software, and how fast can you get it back to the entire team so it's live and everything's happening. All those types of things we try to do.
Love it. Awesome. Well, this has been a blast. We're now over an hour, so we have one final question for you. And that is, what is one question you wish people would ask you more, but they don't?
I would have to say, what keeps you going when things go bad, especially since I just preached, especially since I just taught yesterday on the pit. I mean, everybody gets thrown in a pit. The pit's not a very good place, and the pit. I just had a very good friend who taught at one of my boot camps here at McAfee. He hung himself, and you would have never guessed in a million years. He was 40 years old, the most motivated individual, but he had some just deep, dark issues that haunted him until he hung himself in his dad's garage, and he was married with 2 kids. I mean, just messed up. It just messed up the whole family and everything else. And, so when I say you get thrown in the pit, for some of us, yeah, I got thrown in the pit last year. I posted something on Facebook that was very insensitive, and it went viral, and I lost customers, a lot of customers, and I lost employees, and we lost some very big partnerships that we have in our community over this, because I got attacked by the cancel culture. And I got hit harder than I've ever been hit in my life. And I got depressed for about 2 days, where I was ready to sell McAfee. And my best friend even said, when you were talking to me on the phone, you didn't even sound like you, because I didn't know what was happening. I was having people bail on me, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I was the unknown. So I was in a pit for a few days, and I gradually crawled out of the pit. And that's what I taught on this podcast, is that you have to crawl out of the pit. You can't be pulled out, and you can't jump out, because you don't learn anything. Just like we talked about with the kids, they got to learn, right? So how do you get past some of the things that have happened to you, or what was said about you? Or I was threatened. My family was threatened. My building was threatened to be burned down. And I had police surveillance every hour at my house and business, and I hired a security company to patrol all night here at my business. Little did I know it was all talk, but at the time you don't know. I mean, people are threatening you, you don't know. So anyway, I put a lot. My trust is in God, and that's it, and that's who helps me run my business. And the first book I read was Business by the Book, and I've read several since then. But if you don't have anything to rely on or lean on for strength, I mean, a good friend, like I said, he's no longer with us, and I just think you've got to have something stronger than you. I'll leave it at that. And I wish people would ask me more about that, because a lot of people go through it. They don't commit suicide, but they stay depressed. I coach a lot of guys that are depressed. They don't have the best marriage, and they don't have the best relationship with their kids, and they need to just get a little bit more help, stronger than themselves, and whatever that looks like for them. But if that helps, that's what I would like to be asked more.
Now you see so much of this toxic masculinity, this belief that as a man, you need to hold all of it in, hold all the feelings in, hold all your thoughts in, and that shows strength somehow, some way. But the truth is just being vulnerable and opening up and sharing. One, it takes everything off of you. Two, it invites others to be able to share as well.
Yeah, just pulling yourself up by the bootstraps doesn't work all the time.
No,
you got to be tough, and you got to be strong, but that doesn't work every time. And sometimes you just need help.
Yeah, 100%.
So, it's okay to say I need help, right? That's the other thing. I remember a conversation with, I was in my early teens, and I think I've even shared this before. My dad set me down, and we were maybe driving a hockey game or whatever, and one of our distant family members committed suicide, roughly the same age as me, in their early teens. And he said, "There's nothing so bad in your life that you can't sit me down and say, hey, this is what's happening." He's like, "I promise you from here on out that if you ever need anything and something is bothering you and eating your feelings or whatever, I will not judge you. If you come to me and ask for help with something, no matter what it is, I will not judge you." And, I will say, if you're listening to this, reach out to me, reach out to Evan, reach out to Greg, and I need help. We will not judge you, because there's greater, there's more to it than saying, hey, you know, suicide's a touchy subject for me, you know, and there's more to life than being in the pit of despair. And, you know, you also have to be willing and able to receive the help, but there's a lot of help out there if you just are open and vulnerable with yourself. So please reach out.
Absolutely. And you got a good dad, so that helps too.
Yes.
So,
that's why, as a millennial, I was able to buy my own vehicle. You know, I like to think so. Tersh also said he's a millennial and proud of it. I'm a millennial in like the very first 3-4 years of the generation of it, but you know, it's still classified as a millennial. So
yeah, good
Awesome
stuff.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Greg. We appreciate it a lot.
Yes, and until next time. Cheers.
Sure. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, 2 quick things. 1, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny little bit of information out of this that was a golden nugget for you in your business, all we ask is for you to introduce this show to one person on your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.